I am Greg Dell here with attorney Stephen Jessup. And Stephen, we're going to talk about one of your resolved cases against a company called Renaissance Life and Health Insurance Company. Not one of the big players in the industry at all. And actually, you were saying it's one of the first claims you've had against them. So even though we've been doing this for over 20 years and there's still other companies that come up. Now, Renaissance is not a new company from the research that we've done. They've been around since 2000. But in terms of the long-term disability claims, it's one of the first that we've handled. So in these videos, we like to talk about our success stories. So we'll talk about what you were able to do for this claimant, your experience in working with Renaissance, and then some tips for people who may have a claim with Renaissance that would help them to either get a denial reversed or avoid a denial. So first, give us the background of this claim.
My client was a customer service representative for a financial, like a Freedom Financial, bank. So she worked from home doing customer service calls, escalating things of that nature. A younger girl suffering from, unfortunately for her, kind of like a litany of things that the doctors aren't quite sure. The running diagnosis was mixed tissue connectivity disorder and other autoimmune conditions, and basically got to the point where she was even struggling from the ability to even work from home, in a sedentary occupation. And as you know, these can be very difficult cases when there's already an accommodation to be able to work from home. And then someone can't even do that. So the ability to take breaks at home are a little easier than it can be, say, in an office place environment. Going back to Renaissance, like you said, it was the first case I ever had with them. I haven't tried to see if they've been sued anywhere, and it was very difficult to find any real information on them. But like so many of the insurance companies, what we saw in not only policy language, but the nature of how they denied the claim kind of falls in line with what you see with a lot of the other insurance companies. So like many, they handled the administration of her short-term disability policy, had no issues paying her short-term disability claim, which, like most times is paid for by the employer, the actual benefit. But during the transition from the short-term to the long-term, they conducted a singular review done by a nurse. They didn't have any doctors look at it for the transition review. And that nurse ultimately came to the opinion that there was nothing to support a disability throughout the entire elimination period. And therefore, they were going to deny the long-term.
I want to pause you there because that right there
makes no logical sense because they just paid for the whole elimination.
And I don't like, while they are allowed to, it's weak to go to a nurse. Not to knock nurses, but our client wasn't treating with a nurse.
Correct.
Our client was going to medical doctors, and yet they go ahead and have a nurse review the claim. Now, nurses go to school for 4 years, usually. Sometimes they can get an associate's degree and become a nurse. But it's not the reasonable medical specialist to review a claim, and it's usually done as an inexpensive method, whether it's an in-house nurse employee, which I don't know if it was.
It was.
Okay, so it's a lot less expensive for an insurance company to hire a nurse than it is to hire a doctor, probably 2 to 3 times less, or maybe 4 times less than what they have to pay a doctor. So it's kind of like the cheap way to administer the claim, and the nurse doesn't have the insight that a doctor does. So how do you put the authority of a nurse up against a doctor? But anyhow, that's what they relied upon to deny the claim, sadly.
Or sometimes you do see that the nurse has an opinion, then a medical officer within the company, basically rubber stamps it. So when she came to us, there was also issue of being able to get treatment. She needed specialty treatment that was hard, and she had other issues going on outside of, what they were trying to argue, I guess, at the end of the day, subjectivity of these connective tissue disorders. So during the course of the actual appeal process, you want to build up as much objective evidence to support restrictions and limitations from sedentary work from home. It's very difficult. We did use a functional capacity examination that had more of a spin of a work simulation exam. So there was things about like computer use and things that sitting for a period of time in front of a computer screen because she had complained of cervical neck pain and other issues. The one good thing that her employer did maintain, despite the denials, was maintaining her health insurance. So I'd recommend it. Listen, MRI of the neck. Because what she was complaining of was, she thought maybe it was just related to her condition, but it sounded to me cervical radiculopathy, just the way she explained it. So, we requested she was able to get a cervical MRI, and then her neurologist even wanted to get an MRI of the brain. Now, with respect to what was finding on the brain MRI, inconclusive as to what the heck's going on per se, but there were definitive changes that shouldn't be there at someone her age. She's in her late 20s. And then the cervical MRI did show, spondylolisthesis, and there's some issues, in the cervical spine. So we're able to have objective evidence to take it away from just a purely what they would argue subjective claim. and then the functional capacity examination really kind of tied everything together. And then her doctors, I think, were very supportive. We reached out to them, spoke with them, and they wrote very strong letters in support of her. And I think it's part and parcel of how young she is. And the medical conditions she's going through are very rare for someone, let alone someone her age. So, we're able to really get in a perfect situation where the doctors did really, in a lot of ways, go above and beyond in trying to help. We submitted everything to Renaissance. We got this standard, hey, we've received your claim. And, normally we'll see in other insurance companies, there'll be updates. Oh, we need more time, this and that. The next correspondence we got in follow-up was an approval letter well before the 45-day, expiration period. So, it kind of reminded me of a lot of ways where you may see in a Hartford or New York Life where there's a very little done in that transition review and the denial of the case. And then, on review, I don't know who they sent it to because they're not privy to have to tell me what those people came back with. But one thing that really kind of stands out with me in the nurse's review is the nurse, I believe, stepped really out of bounds in the sense of making her opinions based on what she believed could be potential reasonable accommodations. So hypothetical accommodations that an employer could provide without any knowledge or even any indication that the employer would be willing to do any of that type of stuff. So, the appeal process was smooth. I wasn't sure what to expect. It was my first case with them. And I've been working with you for over 16 years, so it's very rare I see a new insurance company. But then, though, it was good in the sense that, all right, we know that there's a new player on the block, and we might start seeing more of those claims and kind of building, data points as to how they handle their claims handling.
Right. Well, it was a great victory, and it looks like, it was kind of also a little bit of a blessing for the client because she got more answers about her medical treatment and medical diagnosis through your efforts of saying, hey, I know your doctors have been doing this, but we've got to get some more objective evidence, if any is available, over to, the disability company, which you suggested from your experience, because you've handled thousands of claims. You've seen, well, we're not doctors. We don't give medical advice, but we know what it takes to diagnose medical conditions, and clearly recommending, hey, get a cervical MRI if you can, get a brain MRI. And it did show some things that supported what her complaints were, and is hopefully helping her to maybe get better or manage her symptoms. So that was a great thing as well that came out of this. And now I know you'll manage her claim continuously, and she was so young. Was Social Security disability approved or pending?
That's pending, but I think with her age, it's going to probably be quite the fight. But, sometimes you never know in those things based on the condition on it. But knowing how young she is, the insurance company is always going to have an incentive to try to deny with it. So it's always a matter of just making sure continued. I will say she's very good about continuing treatment with her doctor because she'd like answers. She doesn't want to, she says, I don't want to have to deal with this and live like this. I want answers.
Another thing that was great about this victory, and it's something that is now becoming more of the norm than abnormal, is the fact that you said, hey, she was working at home. And we're like 4 years or more past the initial situation of COVID where everybody was at home. And, we used to talk about, hey, what are the disability companies going to say now? Because people are kind of able to self-accommodate at home. But what we've learned is that even for the people that are working at home, the work demands are sometimes even more demanding now because all of the employers have this software where they're tracking the keyboard stroking, the activity time. They know more now about what an employee is doing at home than when they were sitting in their office or at their desk in the office, not really being so dialed in, because then maybe a supervisor came by, maybe a coworker saw them, maybe they didn't. But now when you're at home, you're accountable for everything that you do. So I think in some ways where you think, yeah, you could go maybe lay down, you can go to the bathroom easier, you can go get medicine, you can get a snack, you can go do whatever, but the job's potentially more demanding. And so we weren't sure which way it was going to go. And this is the shakeout that we've been seeing, for claimants.
And in her situation, we're seeing a lot of that being in the customer service realm for companies, and you're right. How many times you call and it's like, this call is being recorded for quality assurance. So not only, them tracking, but knowing that, your conversations are being recorded.
I think one of the points of this is that people don't have to think, because we used to not know which way this was going to go. Oh, you're working at home. They're going to be like, you could relax, but it's completely opposite. So really not a factor anymore. If anything, it might help your claim a little bit to say, it's harder for me to work at home because I can't break without them knowing every single thing that I'm doing. So If you're someone out there who has a Renaissance disability insurance claim, whether it's short-term or long-term, feel free to reach out to Stephen, myself. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you, and we'll always provide you with an initial free consultation.